West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Well, if you haven't read this, you need to. A new deep dive in the New Yorker, painting a stunning portrait of Elon Musk, stunning in multiple ways. The focus on the billionaire's growing influence in both the war on Ukraine and the U.S. government at large. According to the new report, while on a call with Pentagon officials about his company's satellite-based internet that Ukrainian troops have been really relying on the battlefield, he mentioned that he had a conversation. He spoke to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Musk has previously denied speaking to Putin, but the former Undersecretary for Defense Policy told the magazine that Musk said that he had spoken to the Russian president. At the same time, U.S. defense officials were worried he might suddenly decide to pull Starlink internet out of Ukraine. The Undersecretary also told the reporter, the journalist who wrote all of this, Ronan Farrow, that Musk appeared anxious that Russia might see his company's involvement as enabling the war to prolong on Ukraine.
Farrow reports that Musk's influence within the U.S. government is widespread and that over the last 2 decades, quote, Musk has sought out business opportunities in crucial areas where, after decades of privatization, the state has receded. The government is now reliant on him, but struggles to respond to his risk-taking, brinkmanship, and caprice. The New Yorker contributing writer Ronan Farrow joins us now on his latest article, Elon Musk's Shadow Rule, how the U.S. government came to rely on the tech billionaire and is now struggling to rein him in. This is a fascinating piece, and I was talking to you during the break about there is a line here where you are, trying to get some questions from the Pentagon about Elon Musk. And the spokesman says that, and this is a quote here, we'll talk to you if Elon wants us to. I mean, there seems to be a degree of deference here from the Pentagon.
I mean, that's a small manifestation of the balance of power we're talking about between this private individual who has become so wealthy and so powerful in different fields and the government, the actual state. And we were talking about this in the break a little bit. That is a complicated dynamic. That is something that has some pros, right? This is a person who has advanced various fields in meaningful ways. There is a reason the U.S. government is so reliant on him in all of these ways. But at the same time, he is someone who has behaved erratically. And the fact that we're getting that kind of communication from the government as journalists, like we'll go through this private individual, that's pretty unusual. And it is a small but significant sign of just how beholden they are.
And one thing I thought was so interesting is how you highlight in the piece, you write national security officials I spoke with, meaning you, had a wide range of views on the government's balance of power with Musk. A supporter of his is General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who spoke to you sort of glowingly about him.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the framework for several of those conversations with people who were so supportive of him was that all the conversations in advance and with their teams were about, okay, but we want to make sure we're making clear to Elon that we're supportive of him. So you really get a little glimpse into just the texture of the relationships. There is nothing wrong with those kinds of warm relationships, obviously, between a private individual and significant government leadership, even in the context of a military contractor relationship. But this is something more and different. And, I talked to a lot of historians to get a sense of how new this is. The fact that we can only put crew into space, that NASA has to go through Elon Musk and no one else. The only alternative we have right now at this moment, probably for the next year, is sending people up via Russian launches. The fact that if we want to advance green energy policies around electric vehicles, we got to go through Elon and his charging stations because he's got 60% of the stations in the country. Historians told me that is a new extreme and a newly political dimension to this kind of private power.
Specifically on the Russia's war in Ukraine, I think the most obvious example for most people at home is when he decided to end the internet service through Starlink that he exclusively offers to the Ukrainian military, and that's how they communicate, obviously. He then reversed that, bemoaned the cost, but is the Pentagon, is the government attempting to unravel this at all now that everyone knows the dependence?
Well, two things happened. One is at the end of this story that is one of the many stories told in this profile of a standoff over internet access in Ukraine, where it appears he was talking to Vladimir Putin. He was telling multiple people that at the time, though, as you point out, he has since tried to deny that. And then he was curtailing access specifically in areas that Russia was contesting. At the end of that, one of the things that happened was the Pentagon did pay up. They just said, we're going to get a deal in place to make sure this doesn't shut off entirely. But, the other thing that happened is people on the ground in Ukraine, people on the front lines remained spooked, right?
Right.
We bought his services apparently at a very, generous rate. This is a situation where, metaphorically, he had the U.S. government and the Ukrainians at gunpoint. And to this day, they do fear that he is going to curtail service more. It's very hard to get people to talk in that context, and I'm glad that some did.
Once you get into the sort of middle of the piece, you back into his life and you go to his childhood, his first marriage, his losing his first child, all of these things that created the Musk that we know. Can you speak about the Musk that we know now via X, formerly Twitter? And you talk at the end about him taking on AI and the way that we've seen him operate and conduct himself both with Twitter and now with AI, because you quote Sam Altman, a huge figure in AI, saying, Elon desperately wants the world to be saved, but only if he can be the one to save it.
This was a common sentiment amongst Elon Musk's peers, that he does this very significant work that at times, in my mind, there's no doubt, it's a net positive for all of us, right? Even in some of these spaces where there have been problems, the Ukrainians needed that access to satellite internet. It created a bulwark against Russia's cyber attacks. In the case of launches through NASA, we are now no longer reliant on the Russians to do that. NASA officials told me we're moving faster in some of these cases.
But the Twitter thing's different.
But the Twitter thing is different, right? And we're seeing in these recent years that Elon Musk has behaved erratically at times, that the biographical facts that you mentioned that have led to him at times talking about his loneliness, his sadness, the fact that there have been questions about his psychopharmacology and public reports about, the Tesla board being concerned about his Ambien use,
ketamine use.
The ketamine use that I write about. These are all things that can be used in a legal and healthy way. However, there is concern, that this is a human being that we're giving all of this power to. And there are very few checks on that power right now.
I should say that in the story, you say that you reached out to Elon Musk, you did not respond. Has there been any response since it's been published?
Well, he actually declined to answer questions for the piece, which is a subtle but significant difference from not responding.
Sure.
And it's his prerogative to do that. The interesting thing about Elon Musk is he's been the subject of so many books, so many biographies, so many profiles. And he's a rare case where, the mystery is not him. He is engaged in a stream of consciousness, a monologue about himself through a huge swath of public life. He is tweeting, now Xing, I guess we would say, because he renamed that company, all the time. So we know a lot about him. And I felt like what we weren't hearing was, what is it like for the other people on the other side of the table from him in all these sectors?
I just think this is such a brilliant framing because we don't often talk about what he means for us, what he means for society and the world and America. And what did you write? You said the private power is the word you used, is just really important. So
yeah, I appreciate you all having a thoughtful conversation about that. It's a little heady to get into, historical economic policy on a morning show like this, but it is important, and it does resonate with all of us, everyone we know, right? How much power we're putting in the hands of private people, individuals who can be dangerous or erratic, right, under some circumstances for all the good they do. That's something we want to think and talk about. And there's a quote from a former NASA administrator in this piece, Jim Bridenstine, a Trump appointee, a conservative in the new vein politician, very about protecting economic progress and not exalting government power. However, he says such a powerful thing. We have to understand that too much deregulation can also present dangers, and that if we're putting our eggs in one basket, the Elon basket, that could present some danger. So the fact that even conservatives are saying that in this piece is meaningful.
It is a fascinating piece. Ronan Farrow, thank you for coming in to talk with us about it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Great to be here.
And we also reached out to Tesla, SpaceX, and Musk himself for comment and did not receive a response.
It is Wednesday, the 23rd of August of 2023, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, the little Yorkie, is our door girl, and she will be seating you directly for our very special daily special, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid us of these meddlesome priests? Will no one? And here at West Coast Cookbook of Speakeasy, we changed the quote just ever so slightly to make it a plural, because there's a lot more of them than we really need, right? Right. I don't know what that means. It's not mob talk, okay? Don't go out there and take anybody to the woodshed, okay? Please. We're just making a point. All right. Well, looks like we have quite a day ahead of us, huh? Supposed debate tonight. And I guess everybody's going to be following it because it's a spectacle. A 3-ring circus. Get your popcorn. I would say get your peanuts too, but there's a lot of peanut allergies out there, so they got to say just get the popcorn. Okay. I like peanuts. Salted in the shell. Maybe not anymore. No, not at our age. We might be retaining a bit too much water, and you know what that means. Don't want to be messing around with the ticker. Not any more than what we already have. Oh, my. So, like I said, quite a day. We will be also hearing of those who are turning themselves in early. They have until Friday. And then I'm pretty sure it's tomorrow that Donald Trump is going to turn himself in on television during primetime. He's demanded it. Now, why wouldn't he have done it today during the debate? That would have been interesting, wouldn't it? Who knows? Maybe he still will. I'm not so sure, but we're looking forward to it. And we'll get a lot of his medical vitals, too, like an actual true weight. And I bet we're going to find out he's not anywhere near 6'3". Okay? I think the guy's more like my height, 6'1". And I got to say, I'm not ever been considered, the little guy. Maybe it's because I buffed up at some point in my life. But regardless, that guy is not 235 or 238, 6'3". Okay, he's considerably more than the 238. And he's a little bit shorter than 6'3", so you know what that means. Anyway, does that matter? Yeah, because it just puts the lie to how much that guy sharpies everything out of existence. The truth. Let's sharpie the truth right away. And people love him. They go to him as the go-to for the truth, even even more than their clergy, their family, friends, and trusted news. News that can't be trusted because if they say anything about Trump that's untoward, it must be fake. Because everybody hates Donnie Trump. Yeah, we do. And there's a reason for it. You know, this didn't come out of a vacuum. This guy didn't just like fully form or come fully formed when he came down that gilded staircase. Okay. No. He had already told us exactly who he was. I remember kind of getting a little pissed off when he hired all those Polish workers who happened to be undocumented, by the way, and then put them to work, didn't pay them, and then got all tweaked out of shape when he was told that they had to wear hard hats. What? They're slave labor. Why do I have to protect them? You know, come on. So it just kind of proved there and then as a reaffirmation about what a dick Donald Trump is. Always has been, always will be. And we're suffering it right now because for some reason we've elevated the business person as having, I don't know, by osmosis, the secret of the universe. If they're able to make money, they must have the secret of the universe. And I have to tell you, and you know this already. No. Just because you're lucky and are able to make money, or you don't have any moral sense and can lie to people to part them with their money. I don't know if that's grammatically correct. I'm trying to say, take their money. Even under subterfuge, they're called a good business person. Well, at least they're making money. Okay. And so that's supposed to balance everything else out, all the bad behavior. We have to treat these rarefied individuals under a separate set of, well, it's not really rules. What is it? What they agree to? Yeah, right. They don't have the secret to the universe. All right. I've worked with plenty of people who have had buku amounts of money, who have been successful in business, who are, I got to tell you, kind of dimwits. But they had other talents. And those talents generally was they were able to part people with their money. And in not always a truthful way. Mm-hmm. Okay. But they're good business people, and Donald Trump propped himself up as being a successful business person, so therefore we have to trust him. I'm successful. You have to trust me. Yep. And now it's gotten to the point where I hear the stilted refrains of a Leona Helmsley saying, "The truth is for little people." Apparently not. The truth is not for little people. We don't get to get the truth, apparently. Get to get. Where do I come up with this stuff before I've had my minimum daily requirement of caffeine in the form of coffee? Yeah. Little people are there to be manipulated, to do the bidding so that the rarefied individuals can remain rarefied in the climes that they climb. All right. They say that money is the root of all evil. And there's been some actual blind studies. I don't know how this works. But if you get a bunch of money, it generally turns out that you turn into a greedy mofo and not a good person. That's weird, isn't it? I don't know how they codified it in a blind study, but there apparently are studies that have done that in psychology and psychiatry. Can it be cured with some sort of pharmacology? I don't know. You got Elon Musk there, according to Ronan Farrow, that, and not just Ronan Farrow, he just mentioned it, like ketamine use. Yeah, I bet it's a little more than that. Ambien? Okay. I got to tell you, maybe the experimentation that we experimented with all those many years ago, do we still do that now? At some point, I just said to myself, at what point is the experiment over? At what point do you become part of the experiment and the experiment never ends? Draw your conclusions and write the paper. Okay, well, he's in his 50s and he's doing, I don't know, club drugs? Give me a break. I don't think that's really the kind of person that we need. And I made mention that this guy's at least, maybe a lot less, but he's at least a dozen Scaramucci's from becoming full-blown, foot-long fingernail Howard Hughes locked away in... Howard Hughes was locked away in his Las Vegas penthouse, which was, I think, on the 5th floor. That was back in the day where 5 floors was a giant type of building in the desert. I don't know. Where will Ellen go? I think, but he's not far. He's not far from turning into a Howard Hughes. And I got to remind folks, they dragged Howard Hughes in front of Congress. So he may have a gun to the United States. But I don't know. I don't think so. I do not think so. Anyway, that mentioned, what else do we have in store for you here as we begin in the Bistro Cafe of this fabulous salon that we call the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Well, the grieving parents of children who were massacred at the Covenant School last March were booted out of a Tennessee subcommittee meeting about a new law that would allow more guns on school campuses. They dragged moms out of there. Grieving moms! Moms whose kids were massacred, torn apart by military-type weaponry. And the Tennessee repugs had the state police drag those crying, grieving moms out of the hearing, and they were supposed to be there to testify. Okay. Sounds fascist to me, because you know why? It is. Georgia's second-largest school district removed 2 highly awarded books from 20 school libraries days after firing a teacher for reading them. And the D.C. Attorney General is investigating Federalist Society co-chair and ex-Trump judicial advisor Leonard Leo and his cabal of dark money nonprofits. Well, it's about time. After the break, we move to the chef's table where the Fukushima nuclear plant will start releasing treated radioactive water to sea as early as tomorrow, Thursday. And a rice shortage is sending prices soaring across the world, and things could get a lot worse. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Page at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, and we thank Kelly for doing so. Across the page to the left from that chat room link, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, is the link to our Patreon page, and do please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. It really does help, and even more so now. The bills keep arising, and it is with your generosity that we've been able to continue this powerhouse of resistance for over a dozen years. And thank you. We really do thank you for allowing us to fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended. So many, many years ago. Okay. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter while we're still there, and also on Mastodon, Spoutable, Blue Sky, etc., you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of those, and we thank Tom for doing that and a lot more. Thank you. Follow me on Twitter, Mastodon, Spoutable, Blue Sky, etc., 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 at Justice Putnam. You can find me most anywhere out there in the world as Justice Putnam, because that's who I am. You ought to know, if you don't already, that I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's 10 minutes before showtime, and that's where you can find the actual reportage that we are drawing such inspiration from in this salon called West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And you can find those links and show notes diaries by, I guess, well, as I'm sort of intimating, follow my social media. There, yeah. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. Just not on Stitcher because of SiriusXM and what they do. And they got rid of Stitcher. Yeah, we were one of the first accounts on their platform, and we liked it. But now they are no more. Okay, got that off my chest. And it's going to be getting off my chest most every morning for a long time now because I'm still upset. All right, Josh Fialo of the Daily Beast brings us this first offering in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The grieving parents of children who were massacred at the Covenant School in March, or whose children were forced to hide as the shooters smashed their way through, were among dozens of spectators that were booted out of a Tennessee subcommittee hearing about a new law that would allow for more guns on school campuses. The chaotic scene was compounded by parents bursting into tears as troopers from the Tennessee Highway Patrol forced them out of the same meeting they'd been called in to testify. Lowell Russell, a Republican state representative that oversaw the meeting, justified the mass ejection by claiming the spectators had continued clapping, yelling, and holding signs after being ordered to stop. Legislators adopted new rules for attending subcommittee meetings on Monday, banning the public from holding signs in galleries and committees. Then on Tuesday, some members of the public skirted the rules by holding up a book titled Joaquin's First School Shooting and a Covenant Strong Scarf. Others still held up signs in favor of gun restrictions, clearly to Russell's ire. 3 women who held up signs were the first to be booted from the meeting. One woman yelled, "This is not what democracy looks like," as a trooper walked her out of the meeting with his hands on her back. She was holding a small sign that read, "One kid is greater than all the guns." The first to be thrown out, Allison Polidor of Nashville, called her removal an infringement on her First Amendment rights, telling the Tennessean through tears that we've come to a point where you can't hold up a sign. That's not okay. That is not democracy. As the room was cleared, the Tennessean reported that the crying of multiple Covenant school parents could be heard, along with the shouts from angry protesters. After the public was expelled, including those who'd sat quietly, state legislators went on to pass House Bill 7064. The bill allows enhanced gun permit holders to be able to possess and carry a handgun at any public school building, bus, campus, or grounds. The legislation was passed in response to the shooting at the Covenant School, which left 3 staff members and 3 young students dead after Audrey Hale, a former student, went on a rampage armed with an AR-style rifle, an AR-style pistol, and a handgun before being shot dead by police. Now, yesterday, Tuesday, was the second day of a special legislative session called by Tennessee Governor Bill Lee, a Republican, to pass gun reform laws that had make it harder for mentally ill people to buy a gun. Lee's efforts to restrict access to guns were quickly thwarted by Tennessee's deep red state legislature, however, who insisted that they pass HB 7064 against the pleas of Sarah Shoup Newman, the mother of a survivor of the school shooting, and others who testified through tears. Jeff Amy of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Georgia's second-largest school district says it has removed 2 books from 20 school libraries, saying the books had highly inappropriate, sexually explicit content. Did they really? Let's see. The announcement sent in an electronic message to parents in some Cobb County schools on Monday comes days after the Republican majority school board voted 4-3 along party lines to fire a teacher for reading a book about gender identity to 5th grade students. Oh no, horror! Although not new, book removals have surged since 2020, part of a backlash to what kids read and discuss in public schools. Conservatives want to stop children from reading books with themes on sexuality, gender, race, and religion that they find objectionable. PEN America, a group promoting freedom of expression, counted 4,000 instances of books banned nationwide from July of 2021 to December of 2022. Cobb County, with 106,000 students, said that 20 libraries had contained Flamer by Mark Caruto and Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jesse Andrews. Flamer is a graphic novel about a boy who is discovering he is gay and how he is treated at summer camp. Me and Earl and the Dying Girl contains some discussion of sex and a lot of profanity, but is mainly about 2 high school boys who befriend a girl dying of cancer. Both were among the most challenged books of 2022, according to a list published by the American Library Association, which Texas decided to take their membership out of because, well, you know, they're fascists too. Jeff Hubbard, president of the Cobb County Association of Educators, said media specialists were being questioned about when they had bought the books and why. Such interviews could be a prelude to librarians being disciplined or fired. The district did not respond to questions about whether officials intended to take disciplinary action. They're scared to death, and one parent complaint could cost them a career, Hubbard said, meaning the librarians. Nan Brown, an advocacy coordinator for the Georgia Media Library Association, said it's important that students be able to see themselves and others in books. She questioned in particular the removal of Flamer, noting Georgia librarians nominated it for a statewide award. No book is perfect for everybody all the time, Brown said, but that book is really important for some children. Hubbard said he fears teachers will feel compelled to censor classroom libraries after the district fired Katie Renderly, an elementary school teacher who got into trouble in March for reading a picture book, My Shadow is Purple, by Scott Stewart, after which some parents complained. Rendurley said a board policy prohibiting teaching on controversial issues was so vague that she couldn't know what was barred. The district did not respond to questions about who asked that the books be removed or if the district intends to remove additional books. Hubbard said the book removals and Rendurley's firing have been a train wreck for morale in Cobb County, which has the state's highest paid teachers. Both Hubbard and Brown questioned whether Cobb County followed its own policies or a new state law laying out how book challenges should be handled. Cobb County, in response to an open records request by the AP in June, said it had no records of challenges filed under the Georgia law in effect since January 1st. The AP filed a request this month seeking records of books Cobb might have removed without a challenge. The district estimated it would cost about $2,900 to produce those records. Some other large Georgia school districts provided records without a charge. Of Politico brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Washington, D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwalb is investigating judicial activist Leonard Leo and his network of nonprofit groups, according to a person with direct knowledge of the probe. The scope of the investigation is unclear, but it comes after Politico reported in March that one of Leo's nonprofits, registered as a charity, paid for his for-profit company tens of millions of dollars in the 2 years since he joined the company. A few weeks later, a progressive watchdog group filed a complaint with the D.C. Attorney General and the IRS requesting a probe into what services were provided and whether Leo was in violation of laws against using charities for personal enrichment. David B. Rifkin Jr., an attorney for the parties in the investigation, said in a statement that the complaint is, quote, sloppy, deceptive, and legally flawed, and we are addressing this fully with the D.C. Attorney General's office. The news of the investigation comes as the nonprofit that was a subject of the complaint quietly relocated in recent weeks from the capital area to Texas. According to paperwork filed in Virginia and Texas, for nearly 20 years, the nonprofit known as the 85 Fund had been incorporated in Virginia. Gabe Shagalo Rubenstein, Schwalb's communications director, declined to confirm or deny the existence of the probe, including whether the AG took any action in response to the complaint. Schwalb, who took office in January, has a background in tax law and served as a trial attorney in the tax division of the Department of Justice under President Bill Clinton. Well, let's hope there is a probe, and let's hope that Leonard Leo gets his just desserts. Now let us go to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world. And we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, a blast from TV's past. There's an air of nostalgia contained in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem that seems fitting. After all, these pizza-loving heroes in a half shell have been around since the 80s. Gen Xers and elder millennials will get the sly nods and references to the comics, TV cartoon show, and past movies, but there's nothing dated about this reboot. Set in present-day New York City, the premise is the same as it's always been. 4 mutant turtles live in the sewers along with their adoptive father/mutant rat, Splinter. Splinter, voiced here by martial arts icon Jackie Chan, has raised his sons to be ninjas in order to protect them from the human world above them. Splinter knows from his own painful experience that humans don't do well with those that are different from them. He wants nothing more than to protect his boys and forget about humans, but the turtles are, as suggested in the moniker, teenagers and ignore his advice. Thanks to exposure to a steady stream of pop culture, Michelangelo, Leonardo, Raphael, and Donatello want very much to be part of the human world, and even dream about attending high school one day. A chance encounter with the high school journalist April O'Neil, voiced by the Bear stars Ioe Deborah, sets them off on an adventure where they not only learn about humans, but about their own origins. Combining beautiful animation, zaniness, and a memorable new character in the form of a villain called Superfly, Turtles Mutant Mayhem is arguably one of the best animated movies of the year so far. It's funny, but also surprisingly touching, and includes themes of tolerance and family. Indeed, this is one reboot that just might be better than the original. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Suzanne Bard. During the summer, blue whales in the northeastern Pacific spend their days feeding on massive amounts of tiny plankton called krill. In fact, krill is all they eat.
It really is remarkable that such a small animal is able to sustain the largest life form that's ever existed on this planet.
Stanford University marine ecologist Will Astrike.
And to maintain themselves at that body size, they have pretty extreme feeding habits.
A blue whale consumes many tons of krill every day. Eating keeps the ocean giants occupied during daylight hours when they dive hundreds of feet below the surface, where krill congregate in dense swarms. But at night, when their prey disperse, the whales start to sing.
And they'll sing for 10, 12 hours straight.
The song you just heard was sped up 10 times,
which brings the sound up more into human hearing range.
Speeding up the song enables researchers to more easily study whales' deep and resonant songs, which can be heard by other whales across vast distances in the ocean.
It's very likely that song in blue whales is related to some sort of reproductive function, whether that's attracting a mate or warding off other males.
Since 2015, the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute has been recording the songs of blue whales with an underwater microphone attached to the sea floor.
24/7, 365 days a year, giving an audio feed of all of the sounds being produced in and around Monterey Bay.
When Astrike and his team analyzed the blue whale's singing behavior across seasons, they noticed an unusual pattern. As summer gave way to fall and winter, the whales changed when they sang.
There was more song during the daytime than during the nighttime.
To learn more, the scientists tagged individual whales to keep tabs on both their feeding and singing behavior. As summer krill concentrations wane, the whales begin a long southward migration to their breeding grounds off the coast of Mexico and Central America.
Once they start migrating, feeding at depth isn't really a part of the equation anymore, so they switch their primary time of song production to the daytime.
Knowing when to leave is crucial.
It's really critical that the timing of this transition from feeding to migration be synced with other things happening in their habitats.
The researchers think the seasonal change in singing patterns signals the start of migration, which means
we're now able to determine when the population has switched from feeding to migration.
The study is in the journal Current Biology. The blue whale song recording is courtesy of John Ryan and the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. Blue whales are endangered, but being able to monitor what they're up to in real time could be a boon to conservation efforts, if we're willing to listen. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60 Second Science, I'm Suzanne Bard.
I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when it happened. There was a sudden jolt and our submarine crashed on the seafloor. We were in total darkness.
That's Dr. Dejana Figueroa, a marine biologist and STEM teacher, talking about a deep sea dive she'll never forget.
It's funny, when I was a kid, I was afraid of the ocean. And there I was, 2 miles below the surface. But as a scientist, you prepare for that. Using our training and a little creativity, we fixed the sub and finished our experiments. The dive was just too important. Every dive gives us glimpses at things few people ever get to see. Glowing creatures, fiery undersea volcanoes. When we got back to the surface, I kissed the ground and called my mom, of course. But you know what? I wouldn't trade that dive for anything.
Dr. Figueroa uses her passion for STEM to discover new things and make the world a better place. She can STEM, so can you. Check out She Can STEM for more stories and inspiration. A message from the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
This summer is the first for the bylaw in Nantucket, Massachusetts that allows topless bathing on the town's beaches regardless of gender. How's that going? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. With regard to the effect of the topless bylaw, which was enacted by Town Meeting 327-242, a review of the police blotter seemed like a good place to start. And indeed, so far this summer, the police have made many entries. There have been, for example, reports of deer strikes. Oh, the poor deers. And parking violations, as well as mention of intoxicated bar crawlers and an occasional disorderly patron. And sewer overflows from all the rain. The town's website says the town expected an adjustment period for the topless bylaw. Fortunately, it seems that the adjustment period for this island community has gone swimmingly. The sheriff reports that fears of the topless ordinance turning the community into a seaside strip club were completely unwarranted. And the worries about buses or boats diverting to Nantucket for ogling have proved, in the words of the police spokesman, a bit ridiculous. As for complaints about women going bare-chested, there hasn't been a single one. Really, not one. On this score, the police blotter is naked. Apparently, the only thing for the town to fear was fear itself and nippy weather. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1900. That was the day that folk singer Malvina Reynolds was born to a Jewish family in San Francisco. Her parents were socialists and operated a tailor shop. Malvina learned the price of speaking out for what you believe in at a young age. Her parents opposed U.S. entry into World War I. Because of this, Malvina's high school would not issue her a diploma. She was able to still go to college at Berkeley, where she eventually earned her Ph.D. She married carpenter and labor organizer William Bud Reynolds. She became a prolific folk singer, playing around the Los Angeles area. During the 1960s, she wrote about songs supporting civil rights and labor rights. Her song, Free Enterprise, offers the lyrics, "The air you breathe is poison. The food you eat is worse. The dollars in your paycheck are pennies in your purse. There's nothing free about it. You pay at every turn, except the guys in Wall Street who have the stuff to burn. They had to make new brain machines to count their profits rise, but since there's always room for more, they can still make their profits soar. A little war does wonders for free enterprise." Perhaps her most well-known song is Little Boxes. The song was inspired by driving by hillside houses in Daly City, California. It talks about the conformity of middle-class suburbia.
They are put in boxes and they come out all the same. And the boys go into business and marry and raise a family in boxes made of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
And a blue one and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid us of these meddlesome priests? Will no one? We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, because there's a lot more of us where we come from, where it is currently 51 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs in the mid to upper 80s. Winds will be out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Sunny conditions should prevail, and clear skies overnight with lows in the mid to upper 50s. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Generally sunny tomorrow, despite a few afternoon clouds. Highs in the low to mid 90s. Oh my. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Grass pollen is rated low here in our little town of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is unhealthy at 171 parts per million. The good range is in about 30, is the top end of that range. I should also mention we are currently in an air quality alert, which we have been because of wildfire smoke, and supposed to go through till 5 p.m. tomorrow, but I think it may be extended. That daytime UV index is rated high at level 7. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.1 inches. Visibility is down to 3 miles, and relative humidity is at 82%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 80 degrees and fair. Paris is 90 degrees and sunny with a high heat advisory. Rome is 96 and sunny with a high heat advisory. Kabul is 72 and clear. Kyiv is 80 degrees and fair. Hong Kong is 85 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 82 and mostly cloudy. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia is 52 degrees and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 66 and sunny. Chicago, Illinois is 90 degrees and fair with a high heat advisory. And New York, New York is 75 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Mari Yamaguchi of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. The Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant will start releasing treated and diluted radioactive wastewater into the Pacific Ocean as early as tomorrow, Thursday, a controversial step that the government says is essential for the decades of work needed to clean up the facility that had reactor meltdowns 12 years ago. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida gave the final go-ahead yesterday, Tuesday, at a meeting of cabinet ministers involved in the plan and instructed the operator, TEPCO, to be ready to start the coastal release on Thursday if weather and sea conditions permit. Kishida said at the meeting that the release of the water is a key step in the plant decommissioning and Fukushima's prefecture's recovery from the March 11th, 2011 earthquake and tsunami disaster. He said the government has done everything for now to ensure the plant's safety, protect the reputation of Japan's fishing industry, and clearly explain the scientific basis of the move. He pledged that the government will continue those efforts until the end of the release and decommissioning, which will take decades. The government will take responsibility until the disposal of ALPS-treated water is completed, even if it takes several decades, Kishida said. In Seoul, Park Ki-on, first Vice Minister of South Korea's Office for Government Policy Coordination, told a briefing that officials confirmed Japan would discharge the wastewater in line with its initial plan. If it does not stick to the plan, Park said, South Korea will request Japan to immediately stop the discharge, which could threaten safety of South Koreans. Opposition lawmakers and activists protested vehemently, demanding Japan immediately scrap the plan. Hong Kong and Macau announced that they are banning products from Fukushima and 9 other prefectures in response to Tokyo's announcement, while China has stepped up radiation testing on Japanese fisheries products, delaying customs clearance.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Honoruta Gasol and Evelyn Musambi of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Francis Nedge is not sure if his customers in Africa's largest slum can afford to keep buying rice from him. Prices for rice grown in Kenya soared a while ago because of higher fertilizer prices and a years-long drought in the Horn of Africa that has reduced production. Cheap rice imported from India had filled the gap, feeding many of the hundreds of thousands of residents in Nairobi's Kibera slum who survive on less than $2 a day. But that is changing. The price of a 55-pound bag of rice has risen by about a fifth since June, going from the equivalent of about $14 to $18. Wholesalers are yet to receive new stock since India, the world's largest exporter of rice by far, said last month that it would ban some rice shipments. It's an effort by the world's most populous nation to control domestic prices ahead of a key election year, but has left a yawning gap of around 9.5 million metric tons, that's about 10.4 tons, of rice that people around the world need, roughly a fifth of global exports. Even before India's restrictions, countries already were frantically buying rice in anticipation of scarcity later when the El Niño hit, creating a supply crunch and spiking prices. What could make the situation worse is if India's ban on non-basmati rice creates a domino effect, with other countries following suit. Already, the United Arab Emirates has suspended rice exports to maintain its domestic stocks. Another threat is if extreme weather damages rice crops in other countries. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know, Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.